Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is a presentation on the moon. We're going to cover the moon and all the 12 signs in astrology today. I'm your astrologer, Christian Klausner. So happy and so honored to be here to share this wisdom, this knowledge with you. It is September the 17th of 2023 currently, and we are dealing with 6 planets in retrograde, which is crazy, but in today we're just going to focus on the moon and give you a rundown of what you can expect to see when you see the moon in the different 12 signs in somebody's chart. We're going to cover all the 12 signs, so you're going to learn something about your moon sign and what it says about you in this video. And I've got a presentation here, as I always do, here for you, so let's get right to it. So, welcome to Moon School. We're still in Moon School here currently, where every other Sunday I'm teaching classes on the moon with my supporters on Instagram who get access to these classes live. It's only $1 a month. If you would like to join that, you can go to my Instagram and become a subscriber for $1, and you'll get access to these classes live. And so I'll do a little Q&A at the end here for everybody who's here live. So the moon, just so you can understand the moon, it is that part in the chart which is sensitive. It represents the part of you which is sensitive, receptive, moldable, changeable, adaptable, and always searching for security. Because it is so changeable, it is the part of us that is looking for security, for an unchanging, firm foundation and ground to grow, emotionally. So here's a quote by Judy Hall, which is from the book The Hades Moon, which I highly recommend you read this book to really learn and grasp the moon. She says, the moon cannot be outgrown or transcended, but if its underlying needs are understood, it can be transformed. So you're seeking for security. That lunar part of you can be transformed once you understand your underlying needs. It describes our innate response to life. It, the moon, is our basic security needs, expressed from the first moment a baby reaches out for food and sustenance, and throughout the whole of life to the last dying breath. It is our neediness and our vulnerability, our roots and our continuity. She has another good quote here that I really like about the moon. She says, the moon has always had close links with the womb. Both wax and waned, swelled, and then gave birth. But to the ancient Greeks, the womb also had an affinity with irrational emotion. It was believed that the womb went wandering, giving rise to hysteria and other disturbances. And of course, through the ages, the full moon has been indissolubly linked to madness and mayhem. That's actually where we get lunacy. The word lunacy comes from lunar. The lunar energy carries this aspect of quote unquote out of control emotion, irrational and feeling dominated behavior. Most men tend to project this side of the planet onto women in general. And so a big part of achieving wholeness, or as Carl Jung would say, individuation, becoming yourself, who you truly are in this life, that's the path to peace. Stress happens when we're faking it, when we're not comfortable being who we are. And perfect peace comes from having an acceptance and a knowledge of who you truly are. So to come to wholeness, if we're going to use the birth chart for that purpose, not only to really understand ourselves and our unique character in this lifetime, as it proceeds from the soul being the source of the personality, we've got to really understand our moon and our chart. The moon is the fastest thing to change as far as all the heavenly bodies. The moon changes signs the fastest. Every 2.5 days, the moon enters a different sign, making 28 and some odd change days in total for a total lunar cycle. And this cycle is very important, and we're all affected by it, men and women. We go through this cycle of the moon pulls on the tides, and we're mostly water, so of course the moon pulls on our bodies as well. And it really reflects our moodiness, our changiness, and all of our deep needs, which we all come from that needy place as babies. We can't survive without the protection and care of our parents when we're first born. Whereas other life forms, like, a giraffe, they drop right out of the womb running. They just drop out and they're already ready to run and walk around. Us human beings, we are extremely vulnerable and very dependent in our early stages. So this is what the moon has to do. The moon reflects early stages of life, but it also reflects your feminine side and our deep needs that we all have. So here's another quote. Lunar energy is about fluctuation, feelings, mood, and emotion. It is an inarticulate energy and can rarely openly express what it needs or the source of its emotions. It is an autonomous organic life process, controlling the body, taking in nourishment, assimilating experience, and following ingrained patterns from the past. Our automatic reaction to a pre-programmed response. And so, as we're going to see, the sign that your moon is in, as well as the house in your chart, shows the way that this works through you uniquely, your unique style of automatic reaction to a pre-programmed response. It is our heredity, our family, and tribal awareness, and the emotional baggage that we carry with us. However, the moon is also where we need to adapt, not through struggle, but by surrendering to the inevitable process of death, decay, and new life. This process is facilitated by an attunement to Pluto. All right. And so understanding the aspects between your moon and your Pluto, that's another level. And that's very, very deep to do, to understand that. And that's what the Hades moon is about, this book, which I do recommend. But today we're just mainly going to focus on the moon. So the moon is the sustainer, the part of us which instinctively searches for nourishment, food, care, good emotions. It's instinctive. And that's what keeps us alive. It's the biological drives that keep us alive. The drives which, all animals share, the drives to eat and the drives to procreate. So what element is your moon in? That's really going to give you a big clue to what your nature is in this life, your unique nature of seeking, receiving, needing. And so there's 4 different elements in the 12 signs, 3 of each. 3 times 4 makes 12. There's 3 fire signs, 3 earth signs, 3 air signs, 3 water signs. And they're called, these are the triangles. And so fire, if you have a moon in a fire sign, security is found through self-expression, through being able to express, brings a feeling of security, most likely. It does for me, and my moon's in a fire sign, I would say absolutely. If your moon is in an earth sign, security is mainly found through form and structure, things that are tangible and solid. If your moon is in an air sign, security is found in the world of ideas and abstract concepts and being able to navigate these skillfully with your mind. Also, that involves communication. And if your if your moon is in a water sign, then security is found through emotional intimacy, through feeling connection and blending with others, being able to blend, being able to safely express emotion. And so we can learn a lot about, ourselves here by studying where the moon was in our charts, not just by the sign and the element of the sign, but also by what phase the moon was in. So we don't have time for that in this presentation. So we're just going to stick with what the moon looks like in the 12 signs. And so in Aries, the first sign, and you're going to see the glyph for these signs here. This is the glyph of Aries. You got the ram's horns and, the face, the snout. And Aries rules that part of the body, which is actually the face and the brow. And so that's what this glyph represents. It's showing what part of the body this section of the sky relates to. So if you have planets in Aries, you got to watch out for headaches, head injuries, things related to the head, also fevers, as Aries is ruled by Mars. And so that's a part of how we know what a sign means, is what part of the body it rules. This is why Aries are known as being headstrong, because Aries rules the head and it's the ram. So they lead with the head, they ram their heads forward. And it's all about this impulsive spark of life as the first sign, and especially a fire sign. So the moon in Aries The moon, known for its gentle influence, may find itself somewhat out of place in Aries, a sign that doesn't typically embrace overly emotional or sensitive perspectives on life. Aries is the warrior. And as the assertive energy of the ram takes the reins, the typically passive and receptive qualities of the moon may struggle to express its nurturing nature. So if you got the moon in Aries, it might be awkward or feel difficult to navigate how to express your nurturing side. The moon, decked out in fighting gear when in Aries, it will refuse to yield to the dominance of others and won't hesitate to assert itself when necessary to safeguard its Aryan independence. So it's very independent moon, but that's kind of a contradiction because the moon is always going to be this part of us that needs others. And when we come into harmony with that need, we learn to accept that about us. All of our relationships will be founded on a much deeper sense of truth. Your moon is your capacity to be vulnerable. And when you can be vulnerable and authentic with the way you feel and your emotions and being able to express that, then there's minimal stress created. There's no friction, and you're willing to risk being hurt. And so, the walls that protect our heart are the same walls that close it in and close it off from the nurturing that we need. So if you have the moon in Aries, you've always got to be careful of this. This moon possesses a courageous spirit, exudes vitality, and will assertively pursue its unique desires. So independence, being able to be bold and do a straight dash for what you want, this is the best way to, I think, utilize your moon in Aries. Okay, so let's go to the next sign. So we got to keep moving through this. I have a reading to do in 40 minutes. So the second sign, Taurus. Here's the glyph. It's the horns of the bull, and this would be the face. But really, this sign rules this part of the body, the neck and the throat. And so you could also see in the glyph here, this is the chin, and this would be the throat here. So Taurus is an amazing sign for the moon. The moon feels at home in Taurus, although it is less challenged to grow beyond its accustomed responses to life. Taurus likes to dig in and stick to a routine and a rhythm. There's Tauruses that I know that have been able to live the same life their whole life. They have the same job, the same routine, they eat the same food, they wear the same clothes, and they're happy. And they're able to do that. So Taurus is the first earth sign, and it's a fixed earth sign. So it's especially earthy. You could say the most earthiest of all the earth signs out of the three. So the moon will have a difficulty adapting in this sign. However, the moon is comforted to know that Taurus takes its security seriously and that it carefully builds protective structures based on grounded needs and physical reality. The practical attitude and bodily wisdom that comes natural to Taurus really complements this lunar urge to find nourishment and security. However, Taurus reinforces the moon's possessive instincts, thus accentuating its difficulty in letting go of people and things. So I think somebody here live does have the moon in Taurus. And this is an amazing place for the moon, as I said, because the moon is exalted in Taurus. And when a planet is in exaltation, it just means that this planet finds an extra good expression of itself in this sign. So the moon in Taurus, these are people who can find a level of comfort in their skin about their deep needs and their emotions. And if they will really apply themselves to finding a grounded, secure outlet for their emotional expression, then that can be very fertilizing. It can be very nourishing to the life if there is a definite way for the emotions to get expressed. It can really create an upward spiral in that person's life where life just gets better and better and better, and they get happier and happier because the emotions are able to flow. And it just requires a little bit of work and dedication, I think, because the moon in Taurus, this is somebody who can stick to something. And by sticking to it, by committing and being persistent, can create amazing things. So as long as they apply that persistence to the health of their emotions and finding out what they need to do to create a good emotional outlet, then they will succeed, with finding a level of comfort and security in this world. Very good moon to have, moon in Taurus. Moon in Gemini, however, is a little more difficult. This is an air sign. The moon doesn't find security all that easily in the air signs because it's abstract. It's in the mind. The moon in Gemini is somebody who might be conceptualizing love and emotions rather than actually feeling them and experiencing them. And that will create problems in life, because they'll be detached from the reality of what they're feeling. So the moon has a delightful time in the sign, despite what I've just said. What I just mentioned is, the negatives, the difficulties, but the moon can have a good time in the sign because emotional depth isn't what the twins are all about, but neither does Gemini dip into the usual lunar negatives such as gloom and doom, deep insecurity, or fears of isolation. Gemini is a very light and free energy, sort of like the social butterfly. If I mention the glyph here, I'm sorry, I passed over that. We can see in this glyph the two pillars, and this is a sign of duality. And you could see these two pillars as the vocal cords, because Gemini does rule the vocal cords and the voice, but Gemini rules the arms and the hands. So Gemini rules all duality in this world. It's because of this sign that we have things split off in pairs. And so the arms and the hands, as well as the vocal cords, is what this sign is all about. Connection comes natural to Gemini, and the moon needs connection. So it has little trouble socializing due to its ability to drum up conversations with strangers. Thus, our lunar urge to connect to others is highly encouraged by this friendly and outgoing sign. Although emotional connection may not come as readily, but security for the moon in Gemini is tied with keeping channels of communication open and active. If you have the moon in Gemini, communication is very important for you to feel safe and connected. And if you're ignoring that, your moon in Gemini could show you do have a bit of a fear of communicating openly, or an insecurity around that. And if you will be willing to work through that and have grace with yourself and patience as you work through that, you'll be able to do what you have to do and say what you have to say to create those channels of communication and keep them open, especially with your lover or your partner or whoever it is that you're intimate with, your spouse. Communication is very important, and the health of your emotions as well as the health of your relationship depends on your ability to communicate vulnerably. Also, that's your superpower with the moon in Gemini. You have an amazing way to communicate in such a feeling and emotionally keen, aware way, where you're aware of the feelings and you're able to express in such a feeling kind of a way. So very good for art, for public speaking, these sorts of things, but there are probably going to be some deep-seated fears around there. And that's a big part of the journey of why the moon in Gemini is such a good speaker, because they've really worked through these things that have taken care and attention to work through. So I love the moon in Gemini. The moon in Cancer. This is the home of the moon, which, is called the dignity of the moon in astrology. It's also called the moon rules Cancer. So yeah, it's at home in Cancer. It rules Cancer. The moon is very receptive to the crab's warm, mothering energies. And the moon's gentle disposition is even more tender and sympathetic when placed in this sentimental sign. Yet it can also feel heavily put upon, since it cannot readily say no to the emotional demands of others, not without guilt or fear of being abandoned. Because Cancer is all about nurturing and taking care of others. And so the moon in this sign is going to be a person who has a hard time turning this instinct down. So there is a need to be needed that must find an appropriate outlet. The reflective and nostalgic sides of the moon can be more evident here. Still, when feelings have been hurt, this moon's automatic defense tactic is to put up the crab's shell, to shut people out, and to become emotionally inaccessible. Warm heart, cold shoulder, you could say, with this moon. Very, very warm, very, very loving and affectionate, demonstrates it's commitment to others, or it's love through the nurturing and the absorbing and the listening of the person, very empathetic. But if you do them wrong, they will just shut you out, because Moon and Cancer people usually know that they have immense value in the kind of care and attention that they give. And they normally give it very generously, unless there have been early traumas in the life. Um, and all signs have extreme sides, a light and a dark. And the dark of Cancer is these can be people who are completely shut out and just cold, and they're hiding their inner moodiness, their inner soft underbelly, right? So, but the other end of that is they're very, very nurturing and very caring, and have almost like a healing aura to them, where just by giving their attention to you, you could start to feel healed. It's kind of crazy, but the sign is all about nourishment, and so is the moon. It's about nourishment. So these two really go together. Very strong moon. Now, if you have the moon in Leo, like me, this moon is fairly comfortable in Leo, since the lion provides just the right amount of self-reliance needed to keep the moon from caving into the needs of others, or the neediness of others, those who drain our vitality if we let them. While Leo does enjoy providing strength to the weak, Leo loves to lift up the low. It has no taste for long-term dependency scenarios at all. Should the moon need a boost of confidence, the lion can project an air of self-assurance in a most convincing manner, and this usually provides the moon with its desired responses from others of admiration and appreciation, and its main source of nourishment. The vivid feelings often dramatically expressed by this moon are sometimes too fiery, too dramatic in their delivery to satisfy, however, and leave this moon feeling more alone than it shows. So a moon in Leo person really needs the attention and even the admiration of others. And so that's something that needs to be worked through, so that you don't need that, so that it can become nice. But if it's not worked through, there will always be this underlying need of like needing people to, at its worst, to worship you. And so even if you're not aware of this need, your behavior will still be driven by it, just unconsciously. You'll do grand things, and even though that's great, it'll probably come from this deep underlying need for the crowd to applaud and to be amazed by you. So if you have the moon in Leo, you've got to be your number one fan first and foremost. You've got to learn to find these good feelings inside first, and then to share and be generous. And if you're generous in life and you give freely, you're going to get back, because as you give, you shall receive. That's just the way the universe works. So moon in Leo, make sure you're focused more on giving rather than getting. And it's okay to accept the fact that, you do thrive off of maybe the attention of others or their admiration. It's okay to accept that, but you will want to be able to get over that need, I think, so that it's not a need. It can just be a bonus. The moon in Virgo. So I'm sorry, I didn't mention the glyphs here. The glyph of Cancer, this represents the breasts, which is what Cancer rules. Cancer also has rulership over the womb. All right, these also can represent the crab claws in this glyph here. Also, the way that moods flow. You see a kind of a yin-yang thing going on here. It has to do with the ebb and the flow of moods. Good feeling today, now a bad feeling today. Now a good feeling, now a bad feeling. And they always follow each other. So this sign is about learning to work through that duality and be able to hopefully eventually neutralize the pendulum swing, through understanding the laws of emotions. Leo has to do with, this is the cavity within the diaphragm, this circle here. And then this would be the spine here. So Leo has to do with, there's a lot of crypticness behind this symbol. It has to do with the breath, with there's a lot to it, but basically Leo rules the heart and the back. So yeah, here's the lion and the lion's tail, but it's also the spinal cord and the diaphragm, because Leo, as a fixed fire sign, has a lot to do with the will and willpower, ruled by the sun. So Leo's about finding your will, especially your will to create, to perform, and to give. And yeah, self-awareness is the key for the sign Leo. If you have any planets in Leo, it's all about self-awareness as well as giving and sharing and creating. So we come to Virgo now, the sixth sign. We're almost halfway through the signs. And this sign, some say the M means maiden, which Virgo is. It's the sign of the maiden or the virgin. And then it's got the crossed legs here to show that it's a virgin. So Virgo rules the intestines. We might see that reflected here in the glyph as well. The curving and the stacking of the intestines. And it's all about digestion. This is a sign of digesting and understanding the harvest, because the season of Virgo is the harvest time, where summer starts to end and we're about to step into fall. And this is where we harvest all the good things from the garden. And it's amazing. So this earth sign, when the moon finds itself in the sign, the moon is less able to indulge in sentimentality, because the sign is so analytical and quite introverted. The feelings are subdued thanks to the Virgoan inclination for discreetness and cool-headedness in matters of the heart. There may be a peculiar fear of vulnerably exposing the true emotional core. There's sort of a reaction that comes after the flare of Leo, which Virgo represents, which is this toning down and this becoming very introspective of the self. And you could say it's a reaction from the previous sign, Leo. So a Virgo moon certainly feels for others, especially concerning health issues, which makes them great nurses and healers. But there is an innate refusal to go overboard in its emotional expression. So repression is something you really want to look at if you have the moon in Virgo. Are you repressing your feelings? Are you holding back? And this will likely create health issues, since Virgo is the sign of health. So that's the karma to work through. That's the lesson of the soul, is learning to not repress, but again, as with all the earth signs, to find a constructive channel for emotional expression. It is deliberate in its choice to express such well-contained feelings, this Virgo moon, and typically wants to distill the emotions to their purest essence. That is, to find out, okay, what am I really feeling? Like, what's the core of it? To distill it down, simplify it, and then be like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling it. And then boom. This is a sign of communication, since it's ruled by Mercury. So very analytical, and there is a need to communicate, to express. Such need for control may stifle the emotions, however, which can lead to symptoms of illness. So you want to be careful that you're not managing your emotions too much. I mean, we do need to regulate our emotions and find constructive channels, but it's really like trying to control water. Water just, it needs to be contained. It needs flow. It needs purification. This is how the emotions work and our moods. If we try to control our emotions, it will end badly. Now, I'm a big proponent of self-control, don't get me wrong, but the emotions, rather than being controlled, need to be expressed. They need to find a flow for your emotional well-being, your emotional health. So we come to Libra now. We're halfway through the zodiac, so now we have an opposition. This sign is opposite the first sign, Aries. Okay, so this is the sign of peace, whereas Aries is a sign of war, self-assertion. Libra is a sign of diplomacy, of finding balance and harmony with others. This is the first sign to really recognize that other exists. Virgo is the one who figures this out. And then in Libra, it comes to realization of, oh, others have dreams and ideals and hopes and wishes and fears, same as me. So this is the sign that ushers in this consciousness of the other. The moon in Libra, therefore, carries a need for other approval. And this is not of itself a bad thing, to need the approval of others. It can lead the native, or the person with the moon in Libra, to find success in its endeavors aiming to be exceptional in its performance, perhaps due to a deeply ingrained need for receiving the positive reflections, admiration, or approval that it craves from others. The sign does create a good sextile aspect to Leo, so there's a harmonization between the admiration seeking of Leo, but in Libra, it's way more balanced. It's much more about making sure that you are good in the eyes of others, not just because it feels good like it does for Leo, but for Libra, it's about knowing that you're in good social standing. And because that's how you're going to get your goals met. And Libra just has an innate understanding about this, that if I can't get along with others, then I'm not going to be able to make stuff happen, you know? And also there's a sense of belonging that the Libra moon gets when it knows that its relationships are working well. And my brother's a Capricorn sun, but he has the moon in Libra. And so even though he's very grounded in his Capricorn way, he's a good example of somebody who uses his Libra moon to, you know, especially since he has that grit of a Capricorn, he's not going to hesitate to organize his life in such a way that his relationships benefit his life. He's not going to mess around and let people in his life that are agents of chaos. He just won't let that happen. And that's partly due to him being Capricorn, but it's also, you know, his character. And I'm the same way. I'll just kick you out of my life. It's no big deal. I'm going to love you, but I love myself and I love my life and the people around me way too much to allow any destructive person to just be in my life. You know what I mean? Strong boundaries, warm heart, cold shoulder. So, this is a moon, this Libra moon, that hates to quote unquote make waves and cause others to be upset. This is a moon which will tiptoe and, you know, even tolerate walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. So this needs to be worked through and make sure you're being honest with yourself and honest with others, and making sure that you're not being honest because you just don't want to make waves, right? So there is a sensitivity to injustice, however, with this moon, and if aggravated, will release an independence and an unwavering righteousness that mirrors the strength of Aries with this moon in Libra. If a moon in Libra is pushed, they will, and especially like they won't tolerate injustice. Anything that's out of balance or out of harmony or out of justice, it's not right, then they'll be able to really show this assertive side, which is a reflection of Aries. So the moon in Libra needs only a strong reason, a good cause, and it can rally a will to perform with flying colors, whatever that looks like. So very good placement for, you know, being diplomatic, for being charismatic, for being a politician, for being sensitive to how others are responding to you, which is a really good quality for success, I think. So if you have the moon in Scorpio, the 8th sign, I'm sorry, I didn't mention the glyph of Libra here. It's represents the setting sun, because this is the time of year where we have equal nights and equal days, but the nights are increasing. The nights are growing longer and colder as we step into fall. So Libra initiates the fall. And this glyph, you could say, represents the horizon with the sun beginning to set. This is all about the fall of the sun below the celestial equator, down into the southern region, southern hemisphere, which creates winter for us in the north. So Libra also rules the kidneys, the balance beams in the body, the two organs which balance the fluids within the body. So this sign is all about balance in several different ways. And ultimately, it's about the balance of consciousness, finding a centered, serene place within. Okay, we're making good time here. We're almost there. 8th sign, Scorpio. This glyph, again, we have the M here. Interesting. There's you know, dispute around what this M really means in the symbology. But here we have the tail of the scorpion. This is the sign of the genitals. This rules the genital region in the body. And so it has to do with the raw truth in life, because, you know, the genitals are the main thing that we always hide, except for those moments of really deep intimacy, right? So Scorpio is a sign of piercing to the truth and revealing the raw truth and finding a really deep level of intimacy with life, with relationships, with whatever it is. This is a sign of power and strength ruled by Mars, but it's the negative or the night force of Mars being a water sign. So it's all about the expression of power through the emotions. The moon isn't as sweet in Scorpio, as this sign has the deepest capacity to delve into calculated, even cruel responses, which are designed to apply the retributive sting of revenge. This sign is about, you know, getting back. It's very strategic, ruled by Mars, the god of war, but this is about covert war. This is about being sneaky. So any placements in Scorpio that you have, if you have any planets there, just got to be sure that the sting of resentment isn't poisoning you, because that's all that resentment does. It doesn't hurt the other person. Getting angry is like, you know, setting yourself on fire, hoping that the other person will feel the heat. It's just really not good for you. So this is a fixed water sign. So this is where the moods become fixed around a center, and they tend to swirl around something very heavy, such as resentment. And this is why we must forgive. And then through forgiveness, we become transfigured, transformed, alchemized. That's why this is a sign also of transformation and rebirth. You are reborn, born again, literally through forgiving and learning to love your enemies. That's the only way to become fully transformed. And when you do, you will find perfect peace on the other side by sacrificing on the altar of forgiveness the things that you're holding against others or against yourself. And really, you're just playing God. That's all it is. And that's why it's hell, because, oh, you're not God. Whoops. And that's why when we play God by judging ourselves and others, we suffer. As soon as you forgive and let go and forgive yourself as well, you will step into perfect peace, because you'll step into who you truly are, which is love. You are not hate. You're not resentment. So you got to learn to let it go. And the only way to let it go is to forgive. Scorpio's desire to transform unions and relationships can benefit the moon, however, to achieve lasting and meaningful connections that will sustain nourishment. So there is going to be this drive to transform through relationship. That's really what Scorpio is about. And this moon is self-protective, but unobviously so. It's not very obvious in how self-protective this moon is. It can really put on this air of strength and independence and lack of fear, even though there does tend to be a lot of deep fear with this moon. Both the planet, the moon, and the sign Scorpio have skills in putting up protective barriers that shield and veil the exposure of vulnerability, because it's out of survival. But the strategic, manipulative nature of Scorpio has potential to both hinder or help the moon's drive to get its emotional needs met. Obsession is a problem, and rebirth is the answer. So if you have any planets in Scorpio, especially the moon, you got to be careful about obsession, especially obsession of a person or a relationship. And you got to transform yourself through learning to let go. And, you can still commit and dive deep into the relationship, but you do also have to learn to let go, right? To surrender. So, yeah. So that's the moon in Scorpio. It's a very, very deep moon. Again, recommend The Hades Moon by Judy Hall. She talks all about the moon in Scorpio. It's really good. All right, sign number 9. We got Sagittarius here. The glyph is an arrow. And this sign rules philosophy, journeys, travel. And in the body, it rules the thighs, the biggest, some of the, as well as the glutes. And these muscles are very foundational and important for being able to walk around and move around. So this is a sign of mobility. It's a mutable fire sign. And Sagittarius has a tendency to reserve its strongest feelings for its abstract ideas and universal ideals. The moon in this sign seeks connection to the vaster world in which it lives, hence making this moon less sentimental and even less cuddly, really. While the Archer is friendly and transpersonal, happy to reach widely out to a variety of different kinds of people, it often chooses wideness over depth. So this can be a difficult moon to connect with really deeply. You won't find clinginess or dependency as the norm in this sign. you'll mostly find a desire for freedom, which can make creating relationships quite difficult, right? Especially deep, emotional, intimate relationships. While this moon may not seem sensitive to others, it does know how to uplift people and reignite the flame of motivation into a darkened and deflated mind. So this is a moon which, even though they may not appear sensitive, they are quite sensitive to other people's energy levels and where they're at, um, in their motivation or in their happiness and in their perspectives. And so this moon is very sensitive to how the mind is moving. A cheerfulness imbues this moon with a warm spirit that can connect to and express the brightest of sentiments. Very nice moon to have there. Now we come to Capricorn. This glyph represents the kneecap. This sign rules the knees, which are the, helps bring structure to the body. Capricorn's all about structure, and it's thanks to the knees that we can climb. If our legs didn't bend, it'd be pretty hard to climb like stairs or a mountain. And this is the mountain goat. The ancient symbol is of a sea goat, which is interesting and cryptic in and of itself. But really, you can think of Capricorn as the mountain goat, the one who's climbing to the top of a mountain of achievement, the mountain of achievement, because this sign's all about government structures, society, rules, and laws. And its opposite, Cancer, which is the home and the family. The home and the family is the foundation of society. The stronger the home, the better the children are raised. And if the children are raised well, then they grow to be contributors to society. And then the society gets better. The society gets worse to the degree that we don't value, raising children, strong families, and all that stuff. Right? So astrology reflects this, and Capricorn provides the moon a domain that is as safe as it is chilly. The sign is the initiator of winter. When we come into Capricorn, December 21st, or around there, it changes. The calendar date changes because the calendar is Gregorian. It doesn't go with the cycles in the heavens, but it's always right around there, December 21st to the 23rd. That's where Capricorn begins, and that's where winter begins. So there's a coldness to this sign. And while the moon seeks unconditional love and care, there is little about Capricorn that is unconditional. Capricorn actually seeks measurable metrics of success and achievement. The message absorbed here is that nurturance isn't given freely, but is earned, given to those who are deserving. So if the moon in Capricorn can have this innate drive to want to perform and succeed so that it can gain its nourishment, nurturance, and love and care, there's a sort of an innate recognition that it's conditional, which can be really tough. This is hard for the moon because it is opposite its home here in Cancer is the home. So it's as far away from home as possible when here in Capricorn. All right. Security is found through the fulfillment of ambition. A business-like, self-reliant demeanor may shield the emotional vulnerabilities. Nonetheless, the pragmatism natural to Capricorn instills the moon with the ability to choose the right people, right, quote unquote, and circumstances, those that will be most reliable and fitting for what is needed rather than what is wanted. So it's a very pragmatic, practical moon here in Capricorn. This moon gets softer with age as perspective grows, though, and learns later on to open up more fully to life. So this moon could have a lot to work through. You tend to see that the mother was very cold when somebody has the moon in Capricorn, representing a cold or authoritarian mother. Not much nurturing tends to happen for people with the moon born with the moon in Capricorn for whatever reason. So there's a need to work through this and to be able to open up to life and learn to unconditionally love the self, which is, as I've said, simply not playing God. Because God loves you perfectly, right? And so if you don't love you perfectly, are you better than God? I mean, why? Why? You know what I mean? You're just judging. So this moon does need to learn to love itself, and there's going to be a lot of work associated with that. And then finding the balance of being able to Because there might be a fear of like, well, if I just love myself, then I'm not going to have access to all this ambition, this drive, which is driving me forward to be better. But that's the balance that needs to be found. And you can find Moon and Capricorn people, you can find that you can love yourself unconditionally and still have access to that drive to want to make your life better and for you to become better. And it doesn't have to be met with that stress of that hamster wheel of never good enough. You know what I mean? But always trying. So, yeah. All right. Moon in Aquarius, the 11th sign. This is a sign of change and seeing things from new angles. And this air sign is all about seeing things in new ways. This sign rules the ankles in the body. And so the ankles allow us to change directions. And so Aquarius comes after Capricorn to help change the direction of society, to revolutionize the governments and the laws, to make them more conducive to the human spirit, which is what's being poured from the urn of the water bearer of Aquarius. While the moon appreciates how the Aquarian friendliness makes it easy to connect and socially with a wide variety of people and a diverse array of temperaments, the brainy disposition of this air sign bends it to often react from the rational / intellectual sphere than that of gut instinct or feeling. And this complicates things for this moon, making it somewhat awkward at navigating the sensitive terrain of the emotions. However, Aquarius has access to the subtler realms of intuition, which allow the moon to express a distinct wisdom that can attract new people and new experiences and new opportunities without feeling insecure or fearful. There's just going to be a kind of awkwardness with this moon, which needs to be embraced. Aquarius is all about eccentricity, originality. It's opposite Leo, so it has this flair within it of individualism, and yet it's a sign of community and collectiveness. So a moon in Aquarius needs to make sure that it knows that it belongs, basically, and that it's at home here. And then you can be yourself and you can express your needs or express your emotions in the unique way, which is unique to you. All right, moon in Pisces. This moon easily absorbs the compassionate, empathic energy of Pisces. Pisces being the emotional sponge. I'm sorry, I didn't mention the glyph once again here with Aquarius. Again, there's a lot of esotericness to this, representing the waves of sound and light. But this moon or this sign, you know, this glyph represents the water that's being poured from the water bearer. And it has to be, you know, it relates to being able to create change and to shift perspectives. And it's all about shifting. Pisces, here's the two fish connected by the line of consciousness. It has to do with duality, especially the duality that the soul deals with, since this is water sign. And Pisces rules the feet. So yeah, very empathic, compassionate energy here. The moon enjoys close, intimate involvements with others, and Pisces opens the way for this to occur in abundance through the fish's sensitivity to others. Plus, its flowing, flexible way of moving through life. Pisces' psychic and imaginative perception of life makes it quite inclusive by nature and wants all of life to feel interconnected. Hence, the problem for the moon in this sign is to lose its identity in others. A dedication of time and energy to those who don't appreciate such sacrificial devotion is likely to occur. You know, I mean, it's weird how you often see very empathic people with a cold-hearted narcissist, somebody who just can take and take and take from them. It's funny how that works. So we need to work through our traumas and stuff so that we can seek a more healthy partnership, right? The moon needs to learn to devote proper emotional attention to themselves, as well as using energy to help others. And so, you know, making sure your cup is full and that it overflows before you try to fill the cups of others. It's very important for the moon in Pisces. All right, so that is all the 12 signs. And I really hope you enjoyed this presentation. I've got to hop off and do a reading for somebody now, but I love you so much. Let me know if you got something out of this. Let me know in the comments. Make sure to check out the links in the description for all the goodies. And if you want to schedule a reading with me, the link is there as well. I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Be very blessed. I hope I see you very soon in the next video. Much love. Peace.